Hey guys, what it do? It's your boy Supreme Uchiha the God, and today we're talking about Tower of God. I know. I'll tell you my thoughts after, but I just really wanted to talk about Traumerei. And apologies for any butchering or pronunciations. I don't watch animes anymore, really, so a lot of my pronunciation of names and everything else is just direct from me reading. Lo Po Bia Traumerei began as a lonely boy who climbed the tower with a band of misfits. I think they were all at least seemingly irregulars, right? And each one sought for something greater than themselves. At first, Traumerei was not a monster. He was simply someone who wanted to belong. Among the original great warriors who climbed alongside Jahad or Zahard, Traumerei formed friendships, found love, and believed in the dream they all shared, a new world at the top of the tower. But dreams, when bound by ego and power, rot from within. Traumerei's descent was not sudden, it was slow. And it was carved slowly by loss, betrayal, and the creeping dread of, I think, it's like the anxiety of something going wrong, the anxiety of death. And he also never wanted to be irrelevant, right? I think none of the family heads did. His love for Amizu, a fellow climber and someone he intended to marry, grounded him in the fragile humanity that remained amidst the growing mythos surrounding the group. When she rejected his proposal and chose instead to follow Arlene and V, which we'll find, to explain why she ended up making that decision. Those who wanted to climb further and seek answers beyond Zahard's conquest, Traumerei broke. And I suppose with Zahard's conquest here, I think there's way more to it, because we discover quite a few details in this chapter not in this chapter, in this season, about Zahard, and kind of why the mirror version of him didn't like the current Zahard, because, well, I'll make a video on it, but this Zahard is not Zahard. Anyways, Traumerei didn't really lash out at first. I mean, he lashed out slowly over time, but he never really lashed out at first. He retreated, he mourned the dream, convinced that his love had been stolen by betrayal. And I'll explain where that betrayal came from. See, Traumerei, even when he was with Amizu, was still very lonely. He had sought solace in creation. He commissioned the workshop under the genius of Maxeth to create a unique creature, Enkidu, a living, evolving being meant to be a companion. Enkidu was more than a pet or tool. He was a surrogate for connection. Traumerei taught him, raised him. Traumerei taught him, raised him, even gave him blessings. But Enkidu, like any being capable of growth, developed a will of its own. Despite warnings from others, Traumerei ignored the signs, and when Amizu ended up murdering his lover, Enkidu became a killer. Traumerei was shattered completely. Whether it was an accident, a misunderstanding, or a subconscious wish Enkidu fulfilled, the result was the same. Traumerei's creation had killed the woman he loved. The boy who once sought warmth now sealed himself in ice. And I actually have a theory on this. I actually think that Traumerei didn't want Amizu to die, but at the moment when he discovered her escape, he wished for her death. But he didn't actually want it. He just wished she would die at that moment. And I think Enkidu, being so closely connected to Traumerei and his wishes, I think acted upon it. But it was a fleeting thought and not something, I think, a permanent decision that he would have made himself. But you can also argue that he hid behind Enkidu to do it. But that all depends on your interpretation of the story. Obviously unable to unbear the pain, he erased his memories of her death, feeding them to Leviathan, the monstrous sea dragon. But forgetting is not healing. Traumerei locked himself within his palace, ruling from the shadows, rarely ever appearing. He turned his house into a prison of obedience and legacy, commanding reverence rather than love, and refused to trust forever. The boy who wanted connection became a man who controlled. Among those who tried to bring him back was Po Bia Gustang, his old friend. Gustang understood what had been lost, not just Amizu, but the soul of the tower itself, the soul of all his friends. The 10 great families born from friendship and shared struggle had become stagnant gods clinging to power. When they were younger, V had entrusted, alongside Zahard, had entrusted Gustang to be the judge, to be the person that would judge them fairly. And they believed that he had the right temperament, the right willpower, and the right way of doing it, because he's strict not only upon his friends but also, and most extremely, to himself. And this is what led to his actions in the future. He even judged himself, and in fact he judged the whole 10 families and wanted them all gone. He wanted the tower to rebuild itself anew and let it grow and continue like a flower, blooming without them stomping it and controlling it and holding on to the past. Traumeri's sins were not unique. Every one of the original 13 carried blame. Aryan and V, despite the rebellion, still contributed to the chaos. Zahard, once the leader of the youthful adventure, had locked himself into divine authority, closing the tower and denying new climbers, and even more than that, he did something that I will do in another video. Even he seemed to regret this, as the younger fragment of himself in the mirror world looked on the present Zahard with quite disappointment. That fragment still remembered hope, friendship, and adventure. But the Zahard who ruled now no longer believed in those things, at least seemingly. The great warriors all thought they were acting for themselves, that their selfishness was their sin, but the truth was more painful. Most of them made their choices for the sake of each other, out of loyalty, out of love. That was what made the fall even more tragic. Their devotion had built walls. Those walls became rifts, and the rifts tore them apart. Gustang knew this. His decision to judge the 10 great family wasn't born out of hatred. It was an act of mercy. He wanted to free his friends, twisted and fatal, but still in his mind, mercy. He wanted the burden of eternity that he and his friends had to be gone. He wanted them to look in the mirror, to look at the past that they had hidden, and to see it. So he forced Traumeri to face himself, and Traumeri, who had hidden from his grief for so long, could no longer look away. In the midst of all this Hidan, the first figure we meet in the tower, neither man nor monster. Hidan exists as the administrator of the first floor, the gatekeeper, but his power reaches far beyond that. Unlike all other administrators, he somehow could go to different floors and do as he pleases. And not only that, the other administrators were giant godlike beings bound to their floors. Hidan, not so. He selects, he tests, he whispers into the ear of destiny, and he smiles, he laughs as if the blood and deaths of powerful beings in the tower did something for him and his will. And everywhere he goes, chaos seems to follow. The blood spilled across the tower seems to delight him. He laughs, he smiles, conniving. Hidan does not create hate, but he cultivates it. He plants seeds of ambition and watches as they grow twisted. Perhaps he may not be the mastermind, but he is the constant benefactor. Traumeri's final fate is a reflection of the tower itself, a place once climbed for hope, now ruled by those who've lost the way. Traumeri saw his darkness and chose silence. He removed himself from the game, but silence did not save him. It merely postponed the reckoning. Gustang's judgment brought that silence crashing down. The pain of his past, the love he destroyed, the creation he misused, the legacy he abandoned became inescapable. The Tower of God is not a story of pure evil versus pure good. It is a cycle of tragedy, friendship, sacrifice, and power. Traumeri, Zahard, Gustang, V, even Hidan, they all play their parts, all bleed, and none of them are clean. Well, to be honest, Hidan don't bleed, but in understanding those stories, we are reminded of something deeply human. The higher we climb, the more we must carry, and sometimes even gods fall under the weight of their own hearts and ambition.